Good morning, gentlemen. Friday morning, and I just wanted to take a quick look at things as we go forward into the weekend with the discussion you're having about competitive balance and a few other issues. Let me start off. I did put up the announcement last night just to keep us thinking about it, not just to be the proud dad and look at the work my daughter was doing down in Washington. With the baseball game, very interesting too. They had ESPN was very interesting in what they were doing last night, because you'll notice that game was live and was well covered, and I was impressed, as I usually am, with the production quality. But it was very interesting. They had a production crew on site, obviously, for cameras, etc., like that, all the behind the scenes stuff that the field production people get involved with. But again, that game was being called right here right here in Bristol, Connecticut, where I live. So Alex Rodriguez and his partner were here in Bristol, and it came across almost seamlessly, like they were there in the ballpark. So that's interesting. But the point I wanted to make really was, we've been talking a lot in the economic side about how sport needs television. Well, television needs sport too. Television needs live content, or what they call inventory, and this is kind of restoring their inventory. You can only watch so many old games, so that's how I think there was a great appetite for what happened last night, and that things are getting going, and we're seeing it again. Okay, just started to read all the comments on competitive balance, and as I see, we have some really good opinions on it. We have yes, we have no, we have I can see both ways. That's the kind of thing I want you to look at and go ahead with it. Competitive balance has been shown to be important in some senses. The one thing I would like you to consider, and again, it's a little bit of our, I don't want to call it a split, it's very interesting. We have a couple of folks with very strong soccer perspectives, which runs on, as we're now learning, different models, and we have those of us who are more familiar with the American models of drafting and competitive balance maintenance and salary caps versus non-salary caps. We have that middle ground with baseball that doesn't have a salary cap. We're seeing a lot of different models now. You see, when it comes back on the field, we can see the sources of what we are seeing on the field, and we can see that there's different ways of approaching it. So that's what I want you to keep in mind. What are the different ways of approaching it? And the other thing that doesn't get a lot of mention, at least publicly, but does in some of the literature I've provided to you, and I wanted to talk about real quickly, is remember, when we talk about competitive balance, we also have to talk about the market that you see happening for those teams. Now, maybe not happening, but what market are they present in? And let's just say, is it necessary, or is it better for a league, a sport, if you're going to have imbalance, where do you want that, for lack of a better term, dynastic team to be? In the U.S., do you want it to be in New York? Do you want it to be in Los Angeles? Or do you want it to be in San Antonio? Okay? I was thinking a little bit there as I was looking at, we have teams. We talk about San Francisco recently with the Warriors. That's a pretty big market, but it's not the Los Angeles market. Boston has been dominant in basketball in the earlier years. Boston, big market, not New York, okay? It's where do we want our winners to be? And some studies have shown that it helps a league economically if its winning teams happen to be in the big markets. I think it's kind of intuitively obvious, but is it really true? Think about that as you go through the concepts and the consequences of maintaining competitive balance. There are different ways of doing it, and you're seeing how in the U.S. we tend to do it with through the reverse order draft, which is common now for the big four of sports, and Europe it's being done by buying up the best team you can, spending the most money you can for your team. It's really an interesting phenomenon. And then you can see I'm wearing a shirt today from the U.S. Tennis Association. As you know, I've been a tennis coach for many years. Think of it a little bit, even though we don't address it directly, think of it about also as in individual sports like tennis, golf, things like that. Is it good for that sport to have a dominant personality? Golf, we think obviously of Tiger Woods, right? If Tiger Woods is at your tournament, you're going to get more fans, you're going to get more attention. Tiger Woods has also kind of advanced the game for a lot of people and literally had tremendous influence on it. Before him, that was Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer who had that. Tennis, we've had this interesting phenomenon where it's kind of declined in popularity, unfortunately for me, over the last 50 years. In the U.S., at least as a general sport. But on the other hand, the big events, the U.S. Open is just a tremendously huge sporting event still. But we've seen tennis dominated by three, I will call them 3.5 players for the last 10, 15 years. Only 3.5 because of Andy Murray's injury history. But you had that big four: Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic, and Andy Murray. Always, you can almost count on one of those guys winning one of the majors every year, or all four. Everything. Were they good for the sport? Again, tennis is a good example. Golf is a good example because you don't really have that home team effect. You have maybe that favorite player effect. How does that affect the whole idea? The other thing I wanted to throw into, because a couple of guys mentioned the thing is, well, people will even watch a lousy team. And yes, they will. And the question that's really the jury's still out on, at least for me, is I want you to look at that. We're looking ahead a little bit to I think the last unit, but bring it to your mind now. Have fantasy sports affected that idea of I'll even watch a lousy team because I need their fantastic player to actually help me out in this concept of fantasy sports? Now, I know so many people who play them. I know people who have fun with them. I have never played fantasy sports, not for any other reason that I think it's a generational thing. I just don't get it. I really don't get it. I understand what it is. To me, it's a form of, I'll be very honest with you, it's just a form of gambling, and that's fine. I've got nothing against that. I'm just saying that's this whole idea that it's a sport is just literally beyond me. How can I be rooting for 4 teams at once because my players are scattered all over the place? It doesn't make sense to me, but that's me personally. But I want you to think about that. Has the whole idea of fantasy sports actually either distorted our view of competitive balance and how important it is to the success of a sport economically, not maybe the individual team or an individual player or anything like that, but has it had a benefit or a detriment to the sport? I think many people will argue that it's had tremendous benefit to a sport. So I don't want to prejudice your thinking, but keep that in the back of your mind. Okay, that's kind of it for this morning. I'm going to get this off to everybody so we have a chance to look at it, but keep things going. I think the start to the discussion of competitive balance is going well, and it's always been a fun one for everybody. Also, let's set up Tuesday night again, and if you can make it, it'll be there. So 7 o'clock Tuesday night, we'll kind of have that open session again. Thanks again, and I'm looking forward to everything. Thank you. Bye.